My new series yesterday in the association where I'm going to recap all of the games played from the previous day's NBA slate. Two games yesterday on opening night, as there usually is, so I'm going to be able to go more in depth with those two games. So let's start off with the Celtics and Knicks, and from start to finish, Boston just flat out dominated on their ring night. The crowd was rocking from the beginning, as we all expected it to be, and a Knicks team that has not played together before, has not really gotten that chemistry down yet, being thrown into such a crazy crowd like that, and how raucous that place was all night, especially with how good Boston looked. It was ugly from start to finish. What makes the Celtics so dominant is just how good they are on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense is elite. Do not get me wrong. They have one of the best defenses in the league. But where they are able to shine is on the offensive side of the ball. We saw them tie the NBA record for threes made with 29 on opening night last night, and they had 27 in the first three quarters. It was flat out domination by Boston starters. Tatum looked sensational all night long. His shot was going down, and not only that, his decision making was quick, concise. He was making the right passes, the right shots. He was playing a near flawless game almost all night long. Ended the night with 37 points, 4 rebounds, 10 assists. He made 8 threes. Derek White, he added 24 of his own. Drew Holiday added 18 of his own. Jaylen Brown added 23 of his own, but he was a little inefficient. It was kind of an off night for him, but he was one of the only guys that was quote-unquote off for Boston, so it didn't really matter. Horford had 11 points of his own. Hauser had 10, and the only reason the Celtics didn't break the three-point record was because they missed 13 threes in a row to end the game. At one point, it looked like they were going to easily break the record, but they just could not make their threes at the end. Boston ended the night taking 95 shots with 61 of them. 61 of them. Think about that. 61 of their 95 shots coming from long distance. And they shot 50% from the field, 47.5% from three. They were efficient. They were great. They played Mazzulla ball to perfection. And if they play like that every night, even with their shots, we know their shots aren't going to fall like that, but they were getting great looks all night long and just toying with the Knicks. If they play like that, I don't know how you can stop them. Just overall played a pretty sloppy game. That would be the one word I would have to describe it. It was their first game together. I completely understand it, especially against a team like the Celtics, especially in TD Garden on ring night. We kind of expected them to get housed a little bit. I did anyway. And it just wasn't working out. Early on, they went down big. They just weren't getting their shots to fall. They were leaving open three after open three. Boston made 10 threes in the first quarter and just opened the barrage from there. And the Knicks' new guys just didn't do that good on the offensive side of the ball early on. Cat ended the night with just 12 points in his first game as a Knick. Didn't take that many shots either. I'm looking at it. He goes 5 of 9 from the field. He didn't really take that many attempts. Mikal Bridges had a horrible first half. That hitch in his jumper, it looks like he's catapulting it. But he did have a really strong second half. I get it. Might have been garbage time. The game was over. But if you watch that game in the second half, that hitch was gone. He looked much smoother out there. He looked way more careless. And that I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, he wasn't worrying about it as much, and you could tell when watching that second half he was more of the Mikal Bridges we've seen in Brooklyn and in Phoenix than whatever that catapult jumper is. I really want to know who thought that was a good idea to change a career 37.5% three-point shooter's jumper like that, because it's not a good idea. Few bright spots for the Knicks. Jalen Brunson, 22 points. 2 assists, not as much as you'd want from him, but he did have a solid night efficiency-wise. He goes 9 of 14 from the field, and the Knicks' offense clearly was just a disaster whenever he wasn't on the court. And the one big bright spot for the Knicks is Deuce McBride looked awesome off the bench. 22 points, 8 of 10 shooting, 4 of 5 from 3. He's a guy that could make a 6th man of the year candidate if he continues to play like this. I mean, the Knicks are going to need scoring off the bench. Clearly, if you just watch that game, their lower end depth isn't what they want it to be right now. Look for them to try and fix that come deadline or throughout the year, or putting their young guys in more. We saw Pacome Diakite, we saw Tyler Kolek a little bit, but for the Knicks to really work these things out, they're going to have to just play more together. They're going to need to spend more time together, and once they do, they're going to look much better. For both of these teams, we have Boston playing Washington on Thursday, and the Knicks have their home opener Friday against the Pacers. In game, the Lakers beat the Timberwolves 110-103 to win their first game of the season. JJ Redick gets his first win as a head coach in his first game, and the Lakers did outplay Minnesota for most of the game. They had a big second quarter run that helped them jump out to a lead as big as 19 at one point. They were way ahead, but Minnesota gradually fought back. They cut it to as close as 12 before the half ended. The Lakers and Wolves went back and forth for most of the third quarter, and then Minnesota ended the third quarter and started the fourth quarter on a really strong run to cut it to a 2-possession game, but the Lakers were able to hold on throughout most of the fourth quarter. They were able to regain control late, midway through the fourth quarter. They were able to hold on the rest of the way and get their first win of the season. The Lakers, they just overall played smarter basketball. Even though they had a terrible night from long distance, they ended the night going 5 of 30 from 3. They were able to dominate the offensive glass in the first half, and in general, they ended the game with 16 offensive rebounds, and they forced Minnesota to a lot of turnovers and had just an overall really strong night. They had some solid chemistry, and it was led by the sensational second half performance of Anthony Davis, who completely took over that game in the second half. 24 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 blocks in the second half. He completely dominated the game on both sides of the ball, and even though the Lakers weren't shooting well, he was willing them to victory. An absolutely fantastic game from him all around, despite the slow start. A strong game was Rui Hachimura. He had 18 points, 5 rebounds, shot 50%, was playing some good defense, looking really well out there. Austin Reeves, he had it 12, 9, and 4, was a little inefficient, but he shot 6 of 14, was good when he was slashing, but he was just 0 of 5 from 3. There's the discrepancy right there. Lebron didn't have that great of a night. He goes 7 of 16 from the field, 16, 5, and 4. Had a few big dunks. Of course, him and Bronny playing together, it's just awesome. Whatever you think about LeBron James, just throw it away. Being able to play with your son in a basketball game, not only a basketball game, an NBA basketball game, is just an unbelievable accomplishment in more than one way. There were 2 guys I was impressed with for the Lakers. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the rookie Dalton Knecht. He had 5 points, rebound, 2 assists, made a few shockingly solid defensive plays. That was the one thing I was worried about him when he was coming into the league. Made his first 3, missed the next 2, but he was looking pretty fluid out there. He made one really good entry pass on a pick and roll that shocked me. It was a fantastic find. And the other guy I was impressed with was Jackson Hayes. This is a guy that Lakers fans have been really worried about coming into the year. Had a strong first game. 10 points, 4 rebounds. He had a block early on in the game, and he is a really strong rim runner. He attacks the rim with ferocity and fury, and when he's on, he can be a solid backup big man, but it is only game 1. We can't, make these massive claims after one game. Just like the Knicks, the chemistry isn't really there yet, and that's not an issue. We're 1 game into the season. We shouldn't overreact about that, but By watching the game, you could just tell that this team hadn't really played together before. They had 15 turnovers. They were really bad on the rebounds in the first half. They were much better in the second half, but their first half rebounding was terrible. And their shooting just wasn't very good due to a fact of, their spacing was a little discombobulated. It's the one thing that people have really been worried about with this Wolves team, and it reared its ugly head today, but like I said earlier, it's just one game. Let's not overreact about it. The Wolves with 27 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, but he was just 10 of 25 from the field. It was an inefficient night for him, but he was playing with his normal Anthony Edwards intensity and was one of the best players on the court for Minnesota. Finished with 13 points, 14 rebounds, goes 5 of 8 from the field. Wasn't his best night, but also wasn't his worst night either. He did get outplayed by Anthony Davis, but he wasn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. He was just okay. Randle in his Wolves debut goes for 16 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, went 50% from the field, and kind of like Mikal Bridges, he had a terrible first half, but really started figuring it out in the second half. Started out really slow. You could tell that just he did not really fit with that Wolves scheme in the first half. He was a little out of it, wasn't really in the game, but in the second half, as he started figuring it out and gelling with the team more, he was playing with a lot more intensity and was part of the reason that the Wolves came back into the game. Only played 16 minutes tonight, which is something that is going to be a little interesting to watch. He had 6 points, 2 rebounds, didn't have that good of a night on the offensive side of the ball. 3 of 8 from the field. He missed all 3 of his threes. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker, on the other hand, did have a really strong game, especially on the offensive side of the ball. He had 14 points, 5 rebounds. He was 5 of 7 from the field. He made 3 of his 4 threes. Remember, last year, one of the best corner 3 shooters in the entire league. He showed it. The other one of the best corner 3 shooters in the entire league that the Wolves had, Dante DiVincenzo, did not have a good first game as a Wolf. He just went 3 of 11 from the field. That shot wasn't falling. He was able to get some good looks, just couldn't get it to fall. And that was kind of the story for Minnesota that game. They had some good looks at points, but they shot just 41% from the field. They go 31.7% from 3. Not their best night on the offensive side of the ball.